School subjects ranked. Let's be real, not all school subjects were created equally. Some were alright, some were straight up pain, others just made you question your life entirely. Today I'm ranking them all from the best lesson of the week to I'd rather fake sick than show up. Let's go. First we have English. I'm not gonna lie, I really dislike this subject. I think because literature felt a bit more like a memory test leading up to the exams where you had to memorise like 15 poems, 3 books, and then hope that your strongest one would show up in the exam. Some of the literature was absolute gibberish that just never made sense. Like the moment the word red was used, the teacher was all over it with the infinite number of meanings it could have had. Unfortunate opener, but I'm going to have to put English in the D tier. Next we have maths. Maths was alright. I had a good teacher who was quite fun as well. I think the balancing scale in this subject was that you hated it if you didn't understand it, but loved it when you did. It was about getting the process of working it out sharpened, but if it didn't make sense to you, you were just not surviving maths at all. I remember there was always someone in my class who'd ask the teacher, when are we ever going to use this in life? And to be honest, she was absolutely right. When am I going to use the quadratic formula of x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a? I'll put this one in the average C tier. Now we've got biology. I don't really remember enjoying this subject that particularly. I'm sure for some people it's well interesting learning about living organisms and stuff, but I just didn't find it that interesting. Sex ed and learning on why certain animals have certain things somewhat interested me, but not enough to warrant a good tier for this subject. The only thing people learnt from this subject was the classic, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's going to be an F tier for this one. Now we've got chemistry. Now this is one of the subjects in school I just couldn't click with, and I don't know why. I just found it so difficult and all memory based with the whole periodic table and all of the long equations. I feel like if I did understand it a bit better, it could have been fun because there were plenty of practicals that were fun. I just didn't know what we were actually doing them for. I'll put it in D tier. Next is physics. Now this is the one science that I actually felt quite confident in and somewhat enjoyed it. I just remember doing all of those electric circuits and then adding things into the mix to see how it affected the volts and the amps. That was quite fun. Also when we made those electromagnets that grabbed all of those tiny nails, that was pretty sick. I think because this subject kind of favoured people who were good at maths, it's probably why I understood it and liked it a bit more. And for that, I'll put physics in B tier. Now we got IT or ICT, whatever you want to call it. Something about being on the computers at school was actually unmatched. Probably because our brains were craving screen time, but it always just felt fun because Gen Z are good with computers, to be fair. I remember getting taught how to make websites, app interfaces, and even games. We were on Scratch, and me and my mate made some weird game that was basically Crossy Road, and the teacher was actually well impressed with it. IT could also be one of those mess about lessons too, where you just freely use the computers to do whatever you want when the teacher wasn't looking. And IT goes into S tier. Next is computer science. So I took this subject thinking I was going to love it. Plot twist, it was like the hardest subject I've ever done. To be fair, it was fun and enjoyable when you understood it, but the binary and coding could get really difficult and would just knock your confidence. So I'm going to put computer science in B tier. Now is business. Now business was actually alright, to be fair. Like learning about how businesses work, it definitely sets you apart if you wanted to start a business as you've already got some knowledge already. The annoying part was learning all of the equations and being able to answer the exam questions because you had to learn how to answer them in a certain way and it was a bit difficult. And also on the exam, I always ran out of time and I'd never finish the paper, which was really annoying. So I'm going to put business in B. Languages. I took this one at GCSE, so clearly I had an interest for it. At my school, it was just French or German, but I know some schools do others like Spanish and that. One of the main reasons I took this subject was literally because there was a France trip held every year, so I was definitely taking it. And both trips were amazing. We even went to Disneyland one year. With languages though, I actually think it's really convenient skill to learn and I did enjoy the subject, to be fair. But it could get difficult sometimes with the memory recall. But for that, I'm going to put languages in A tier. History. Now that I think about it, history was actually quite interesting. Learning about how the world used to work, like the World War, Henry VIII and all that stuff. I think because it's all like stories from the past and I love hearing about that kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of what this channel is literally based on. But I don't really remember it being something I absolutely loved at school, so I'm just going to chuck it in B. Now we've got geography. Not going to lie, I despise this subject, and I don't understand why when I look at it now what was covered. You looked at things like earthquakes, volcanoes, urban issues and stuff. Literally learning about real world issues and stuff, but I think at this age I wasn't particularly interested because I was quite ignorant to it, so it didn't really click with me. Controversial because I know a lot of people like this one, but I'm going to put it in D tier. RE. I can understand why some people would like this subject as it's learning about people's beliefs and practices, making you a more empathetic and understanding person, but this one wasn't really for me. As a teenager, I wasn't really that mindful, so it made the subject not as appealing to me. I did find some of the content interesting though, and I don't particularly remember disliking the subject, so I'll put it in C. Now we got design tech. I think when in school, most kids will favour the practical lessons, and this whole subject was basically a practical every time you went into the class. Literally just making things out of wood, using a sewing machine, or cooking up in the kitchen making a cheesecake or something. Realistically, cooking was probably the most useful out of them, and I'll still never forget how to make a cheesecake to this day. The woodwork and sewing would not interest me at all outside of school, but it was more just like a free hour off something boring at school. I'm going to give DC a solid A. PE. Okay, here we go. I could ramble on this one all day. If there was a god tier here, it'd be there. PE was that subject that was just an escape from everything boring at school. It was a bit of a mess about lesson because me and my mates chose to be in bottom set, so we didn't have to deal with the tryhards at PE, and I think that's what made it fun. It was no longer about being the best and winning, it was just about having fun. I absolutely love football, dodgeball and water polo, because our school had a pool. Man, PE was actually so fun. Easy S tier here. Now we got drama. Drama was another mess about lesson. You were told what to do at the start rehearsing, but just play about the whole time. And then when it actually came to the performance at the end, you just had to make it up on the spot. I feel bad for the teacher because it was probably impossible to control the class and then just watch their god-awful performances at the end of the lesson. I think I'll put drama into B tier. And finally, we have music. I quite enjoyed music, to be fair. It could sometimes just be a mess about lesson again, where you're left to the instruments, especially the keyboards and the pianos. Also at our school, we had to perform at the end of each year, so we'd get weeks to practice, but then there was 100% zero practice going on in those sessions, and we just had to make it up as we went along when it came to the actual performance. Some of the theory we learnt back then has actually helped me now because I play the piano now, and I can read the sheet music easier because I had it built into me early on in school. And for that, I'm going to give music an A. So yeah, here's the final tier list. Let me know if you agree with it, disagree with it, whatever. Right, I'll see you later.